Welcome back into Mizzou That's Who podcast. Tucker Franklin, Maggie Johnson hanging out with Sports Illustrated senior writer and a Mizzou Made guy, Pat Forde, joining us here on the Mizzou That's Who podcast. Pat, thank you for taking some time sitting down and talking some border war with us.
Hey, happy to do it. Great topic. If there's anything that can lessen the objectivity of a sports writer that went to Missouri, it's playing Kansas. So
there it is.
It's funny. I was talking to one of my friends that's a KU grad, and I was like, I'm not telling anybody, but Pat Forde's coming on my show, and they're like, oh, he always says mean things about KU and so biased towards Mizzou. I'm like, yeah, that's why we're having him on.
I hope it's a clean, well-played game, and Missouri wins by 7 touchdowns. No.
I love to see it. That's why you subscribe here for that analysis. But Pat, let's just talk about the renewing of this rivalry. This is a rivalry that hasn't been played in a while. Missouri does have a 3-game winning streak in the rivalry, by the way, if we want to throw that out there. And they're a program that has a lot of high expectations coming into this year in terms of where they want to go and how they've looked so far this year. But also just the renewal of the border wall rivalry and how they're doing it with the home and homes and no neutral sites as of now.
Yeah, I love it. I'm really happy they're playing. It's great for both fan bases. One of the worst things about realignment has been the loss of some of the great rivalry games. And so to schedule it non-conference and, as you noted, Tucker, to schedule it in each other's stadiums, I think is even better. Kansas City obviously would be the natural place and play there in Arrowhead, and they've done it before very memorably. But it's better when you're playing it Faurot Field and was it Booth Stadium or whatever they're calling the new stadium there at Kansas. So that's where it should be played. And yes, the rivalry should be on. So kudos to both schools for making it happen.
I feel like my age is kind of the last age that was there to see both. There was a game on campus and then there was the games at Arrowhead. So it's so hard. It was also just so long ago. So it's even hard for me to even really remember everything except, the safety in the end zone. But yeah, those games at Arrowhead, they were electric, but they were electric because of where Kansas and Missouri were at the time, where their programs were at the time. I don't think that every season is going to be that way. So I'm loving the home and homes as well.
Yeah, I think college football is always better played on campus. Sometimes you get, I will say that the 50-50 crowd split for OU Texas or for Florida Georgia is fun. It really is, but I still think that when you have to go to somebody else's home, and the challenge of that, and then the fervor that it brings out in the home school, that's what makes college football really special, because that's different even than the NFL or anywhere else. And you just feel it all week on campus when you have a big home game coming, especially when it's a rivalry game. And people are cranked up and they're, just getting more and more excited. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is nuts. And then Saturday, you finally play the game. So, I think it's perfect the way they've got it set up now. And I sure hope they continue it in perpetuity.
Absolutely. Especially with the way that the SEC is changing their scheduling stuff. It almost makes too much sense for them to continue it with the perfect marriage with another P4 school that they can keep in their schedule for all time. And I think that's the perfect. We talked about this with Macklin. It can kind of be that week 2, the Cyhawk Trophy type of rivalry that you can always do and hold it there. I think that'd be really cool. I want to get your thoughts on this, Pat, because this rivalry came back in basketball more recently than it has in football. Missouri obviously getting the huge upset over KU last year. How much do you think that's added to the rivalry? I know it's a completely different sport, but it feels like the fan bases now are starting to get a little bit more chippier with each other since when this rivalry first came back a few years ago in basketball, the sport that KU wanted it to come back in, right? And Missouri was able to upset them and now get some bragging rights in that.
I think that was huge. Absolutely. I was great for Dennis Gates, great for Missouri. And, let's be real here. The reality is that Kansas is almost always had the better basketball program. So for Missouri to get a win like that, I think does reestablishes, yes, this is going to be competitive. Kansas better be ready. You can't just expect Missouri to roll over when you play the Tigers. And 2, yeah, you know what? It's going to matter. It's going to resonate for your NCAA resume and all that sort of thing. So, I thought that was fantastic and an indication that, I think Missouri basketball is in a good place. And I think it does carry over now to this football game a little bit too. That guarantee that got Kansas's attention.
Well, I mean, you also had Drinkwitz up there with signs with the, however many level 5 violations or whatever it was, 5 level 1 I don't remember what it was. But you got him instigating, which is, that's what he does. But I do think that Drink's done a good job at also giving Lance Leipold and Kansas like their praise as they do deserve. Like you can make fun of them all you want for the seasons that they've had or not. They won 8 games a couple years ago. I think they won 5 last year. That's a step up. Like that's a massive step up from where Kansas was. So I think it's going to be a good game. Anything could happen in a rivalry game. And I think that that's why Kansas and Missouri have such an even number of wins. Like I think we're up like 1 or 2 games. And I think that some of those are debated, but amongst the fan bases, especially due to that 1960 game. So yeah, I'm super stoked about it. I think you have these people buying in that have nothing to do with the state of Missouri and like Drink and Gates and all that. They don't know anything about Missouri, but they stepped on campus and what happened? They hate KU.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I do love Drink he's such an accomplished smartass and provocateur, I mean, he can do it in a variety of ways. And I am entertained by that, to be sure, and yeah, him with the signs, that was excellent. That's expert trolling there. I mean, let's call it what it is. Kansas has been in trouble. But yeah, on the football side, Kansas it's been a little harder to hate them because A, they've been so terrible for so long. And then B, Lance Leipold's just a good guy who's done a really good job. So there's no real history of conflict there. I think Kansas fans will, if they haven't already grown to hate Eli Drinkwitz based on the basketball game alone, they will quickly. And I do expect Missouri to win and possibly escalate the dislike that will come from Kansas for him. But that's good. That's fine. That's all good and well. And, it's good for Missouri, especially if you're going to schedule this game for Kansas to at least be decent. And, they were god awful I was at the 2007 game, the game in the history of the rivalry. And then I think for another year after that, maybe 2, Kansas was pretty good. And then they just fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
And they finally made a good hire in Leipold and they're back. And so if Missouri's going to play them, you want somebody that, if your program's doing well, you should win more than you lose. But also it's a game that helps your strength of schedule. And theoretically, that's what this could be for Missouri, as long as Kansas is at least decent.
Let's talk about kind of the 2 biggest parts of this matchup, and it's the quarterbacks for both teams. Jalen Daniels is one of those guys who seems like he's been in college going on his 7th, 8th year at this point. He's been around for a minute, a guy who has kind of established himself as a college quarterback. And Bo Pribula had a really good game, really, really good first game. I don't think you could have asked for anything better from what you saw from Bo. But thoughts on both of these quarterbacks heading into this matchup, where I think that this is going to be kind of the looking point, the sticking point for a lot of people going into it.
Yeah, it should be a great, really fun quarterback matchup. You're right. I mean, I think they're similar in terms of they've got all the skills. They can throw and they can both run, and they can make big plays. And I think they both carry themselves with a high degree of confidence. So, I don't expect either of them to shrink from the fight here at all. Jalen Daniels is 22 years old, and this is his 6th year of college football. So I don't know how that math works out. He was like,
right, yeah,
underage when he got to college or whatever. We
need to see that birth certificate.
Yeah. I mean, I looked at this like 3 times to make sure I was right before the season. It's like, wait a minute, you started in this year and you're still 22? How is this possible?
Right.
But he's been through it all. He's seen it all. If he's healthy, and so far he is this year, he's really, really good. And they've got a good creative scheme for him.
Yeah.
But I do really like what Bo showed everybody. Missouri needs to clean up their quarterback protection. He got hit a lot against a not very good team. Caden Green moving from guard to tackle is a work in progress, I would say, after that first game. He's a super talented player. You wonder if he's playing out of position, but as a super talented player, he'll probably figure it out and get better. But Missouri's got weapons. They've got speed. I like the look of what they've got in terms of playmakers, offense, defense, special teams across the board. This looks like an SEC team in terms of speed and athleticism.
I think with Kansas, I think they returned most of their offensive line, which plays like a huge role. Obviously, we had some turnover in ours, so I do think that is going to be kind of the difference maker in the game. Other than that, I think position to position, besides maybe that quarterback position, I think Mizzou is the more talented team, especially on defense and that secondary for sure. Kansas had to replace Kobe Bryant. They had to do a lot of and Lance Leipold did a good job in the transfer portal, don't get me wrong, but even then he went and got some linebackers. The linebackers are out for the game. So I think that Mizzou should be the more talented team on this field, but it's all going to come down to that offensive line for me.
Yeah, execution, got to be able to play. And, obviously Kansas, their coaching staff is not dumb. They can look at the film and say, okay, we're going to throw blitzes at them. We're going to do whatever. We're going to make that offensive line show that they've gotten better. Kansas offensive line is good so far, and they have had the advantage of playing 2 games to Missouri's 1 to work out a few more kinks, if you will. But I agree. I think in general, just Missouri is the program is further along than Kansas's program. There's more talent. There's more speed, probably more strength as well. So the advantages, I think, are there as long as you show up and execute.
Well, speaking of that talent, that wide receiver room is just heavy laden with talent for the Missouri Tigers. That's one of those positions where you feel pretty good. And Maggie bringing up the secondary of Kansas, and especially the linebackers as well. That could be an area of really where the Missouri Tigers can exploit them. How do you feel about the Missouri Tigers, their wide receiver room and the talent that they have from their freshmen up to their upperclassmen and their lowerclassmen? It seems like they just got all kinds of dudes in that room.
Yeah, really exciting. Kevin Coleman was the big transfer get, but and he was really good, especially the kick return from him. But Marquise Johnson and Joshua Manning as well, and then obviously the freshman Donovan. I don't want to mispronounce his name. Olagbode.
Adubala.
And then thank you. All right, thank you very much. I think the tight end situation is great. Not just Norfleet, but you got a good freshman there too. So, I really like what Missouri's done there. And I think having Luther Burden and Theo Weiss and those guys, I think kind of established, okay, this is a good place for receivers to go and to be able to flourish and get drafted. And so, I think that's going to only continue to help them in the portal and in high school recruiting as well. So, that, I would look for those guys for Missouri to let it rip and see if those guys can get deep the way that they did in the first game.
What do you think are some of the keys besides offensive line, which we've already talked about? What do you think are some of the keys to winning this game for maybe even both sides? What do both sides need to do?
Well, it's cliche, but start with turnover margin. And Missouri was good in that area, took 2, lost none. Taking care of the ball in a game that's relatively close is absolutely vital. But Kansas, generally speaking, has been pretty good in that area as well under Leipold. But they're a +1 turnover margin through 2 games, so they've been a little bit less consistent in that. I'm trying to see here. Yeah, they had lost 2 turnovers against Wagner. So if you're loose with the ball, and Missouri does have the kind of guys that I think can take the ball, that's the biggest thing. So that, and then ball control, that it's a bit of an outdated stat in terms of how long you possess the football, but that Missouri's been good at that in recent years. They have been able to grind out clock, elongate drives and just keep moving. And I am, with Bo can run for sure, but the question is now with Sam Horn's situation, how much do you really want him to run? Zollers may end up being a really good player, but you don't want to be throwing him in there because Bo got hurt in the first half against Kansas. So there's probably got to be a little bit of a balancing act there for Drink and his staff, Kirby Moore, to figure out how much do we really want to run the quarterback here.
I thought Eli Drinkwitz had a really good quote on Tuesday, and I thought that was really interesting, just kind of like an inside glimpse into his offensive philosophy now as they go from not really having a backup quarterback. Now you had two quarterbacks that you felt really good about, and now you don't. Now you have a freshman, as you mentioned, Pat. But he said you can't control injuries, but you can't be afraid of them. I thought that was a really interesting quote about how he was going to kind of shift his offensive philosophy there. I want to flip to the defensive side of the ball too, because this is one side that, you know what, I don't think was talked about a whole lot really with Missouri, but they were hit the transfer portal hard in their defensive side of the ball. In their first game that they had, look, I know it's against an FCS Central Arkansas, but they only had 73 passing yards. Central Arkansas only had 73 passing yards. That was the fewest for a Mizzou opponent since September 7th of 2024 against Buffalo. And the defense was also held Central Arkansas to 1 of 13 on third downs. I mean, look, I know it's an FCS team, but they took care of business. They did what they needed to do. What are your thoughts on Missouri's defense kind of coming into this Kansas matchup?
I like it. I mean, I think they're in good position. As you said, I mean, no, the competition wasn't good, but I thought what they put on the field was strong. Disruptive at the line of scrimmage, getting into the backfield. Damon Wilson had 2 sacks. They had 7 tackles for loss, which tells me that's going to be the aim, and generally has been one of the calling cards of Drinkwitz's time there, is just being able to get in the backfield and disrupt the other team. So that also helps your coverage. If you're going to play man-to-man, but the quarterback is running for his life, he's going to have less time to find the open guy. So I think that that's probably the formula that they're looking for. It was so interesting. Williams Winery, who was the big recruit from Kansas City, who transferred to Nebraska. I was watching him play in Nebraska's opener, and he certainly looks the part, and you think, oh my gosh, you lose a guy like that, that's really going to hurt you. Nah, not necessarily. I think Missouri is one of those places where defensive ends and linebackers can go to thrive, and you're going to be able to have guys that can step into those positions and make big plays.
And you have to think about it this way, is that if you're going to be an SEC team that's competing in the SEC, you can't be reliable on one guy. You just can't be. You have to be deep, or you have to get somebody in there to replace them. So really, when he left, I was like, oh yeah, that's a bummer, because there was so much talk about him. Like, we literally talked about him for 2 years, it seems like. But then he goes out and he gets Damon Wilson, and you're like, okay, maybe it won't be as bad as we thought it was going to be. And even if we wouldn't have gotten Damon Wilson, obviously he's a huge addition, but like, we're very deep on that defensive line. So yeah, he just adds so much more like complexity to that defense, I feel.
Yeah, and that's, again, I think Missouri has been really good in the portal for a couple of years now, and that goes back to Drink and his staff are good talent evaluators and talent procurers, and Missouri's showed up in terms of NIL. I mean, they've got people putting up the money to get impact players. So, I don't really worry too much right now, year over year, from a personnel standpoint, because I have pretty confident that Drink's going to be the kind of guy that brings in good players all the time.
So not necessarily just a kind of a big picture question for you, Pat. Like, after you got to see Missouri play against Central Arkansas, again, a lesser opponent, it feels like every time you talk about that game or anything from there, you have to mention that it was an FCS opponent. Did your expectation of this team change at all? Where they can go, what they can do? And there's no like FPI predictors now saying that they've got higher chances of making playoffs in Alabama and some of these blue blood schools out there. So did your expectations change at all?
Yeah, not pretty much the same. And I was doing a speaking engagement last week before the games were played, and I was touting Missouri as a sleeper playoff team, largely because of the schedule.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you open with 6 straight at home, and I do have thoughts and prayers for the student body after 6 straight home games.
Feel bad for us. We're driving too. I have to drive 2 hours, like every, Kansas City, St. Louis, every single weekend.
Yeah, but you're not spending Thursday, Friday, and Saturday getting hammered on campus. I don't think. I don't know. Maybe you are.
Maybe, yeah.
Not anymore. I gave that up like 2 years ago.
Yeah, see, I hear you. But like, the students are going to be exhausted by mid-October. Like, oh my God, another home game. I don't know whether I can do it. But no, the schedule just gives them a great chance. And that's, you go through and you're like, okay, you can win every single game. Well, maybe Alabama is going to be tough. Well, did you see Alabama? Maybe not that tough. So I think they have a chance for a phenomenal start to the year. And then you see what happens when you hit the road later on. Auburn, incredibly tough place to play. Vanderbilt, tougher than it had ever been before. You're at Oklahoma, which looks a lot better. Arkansas, Missouri's program's in better position, but that's a bit of a rivalry game, so who knows? So make hay while you got it here with these home games, and that's another reason why this Kansas game is big. Get this W, get Louisiana, then South Carolina comes in, and that's when it starts getting real. But I think they really have a chance for a fantastic start that builds up confidence, chemistry, and a lot of momentum going into the back half of the season.
Yeah, we've talked about this game kind of being similar to the 2023 K-State game where it's setting up your season. Like, where is your team going to go? And not only season, but like it could be a trajectory thing because Mizzou's really controlled the recruiting in the area. You know, Nebraska's come in and gotten a couple guys because they're still the name Nebraska, but they're not Nebraska of the 90s. You're really kind of taking who you want at this point out of the area. You don't want to give any reason for any of those players to go elsewhere. But you look at what's kind of happened to K-State since that happened. You know, they'd won the Big 12 championship, then came to Mizzou, lost, went 8-4, and they've just kind of been on a downhill spiral, almost lost to North Dakota last week. So you really, really need just to kind of show that dominance in the area.
I mean, look, beating people that you recruit against is always vital. And that's another reason why beating Kansas this week is an important thing because they'll be recruiting Kansas City and Western Missouri and areas like that. So winning these kind of games is really big. And yeah, I think one of the best things Missouri has done in recent years is to do really well in the St. Louis area. And you want to maintain that. And the more you can just establish, hey, this is where the best players in the state go, the better. And that's been the talking points forever since back when I was in school and probably before then. It's the only Division I school in the state, the only FBS school in the state. You got to control the state. And there have been a lot of years when they didn't control the state. So doing so is really important.
Pat, last one for me here. I appreciate your time. I'm sure Maggie's got a couple more, but I want to talk about College Game Day not being in Columbia for this one. I know that, look, I guess OU Michigan is a bigger draw. I don't necessarily think so. I think it's kind of crazy that they're not going to KU Mizzou for this one. You got other places coming to Columbia for this game, but College Game Day is going to choose OU and Michigan over the border war? That's kind of crazy to me.
Well, if I were making the call for College Game Day, I would be in Norman too. So sorry, but trying to put on my national media hat, I'm going to Michigan, Oklahoma.
I was trying to get you.
Yeah. Look, I was at the 2007 game when Game Day was there. I was on the set. I was working for ESPN. I was working for Game Day, and so I get it. And that was such an awesome atmosphere. And I do remember, I was the guy. I was kind of the Pete Thamel role. You stand on the side stage over there, which actually was just the parking lot at Arrowhead Stadium, and give you a report on who's healthy or who's not healthy or this and that. But the amount of excitement and anticipation for that game and to have Game Day there, everything. I mean, that was the perfect storm and really the apex of the rivalry.
I was at Mizzou during when last time Game Day came to Mizzou in 2010. And obviously Mizzou showed out. Props to all the Mizzou fans, all the parents, everybody, they came out for it. I think as a fan, just like our perspective on it is like, we understand who OU and Michigan are. Like, we know, like we're not sitting here thinking that we are that level of a program or anything, but it just gets exhausting seeing them be like, we can't wait to go to new places. We can't wait to cover new teams. They were in Norman last year for the Tennessee game, and they were at Red River Shootout last year for the OU. So I think we just get tired of hearing like the same thing. You're like, okay, well, you don't really practice what you preach, I guess.
Yeah, no, they don't. I mean, they go where they think the eyeballs are going. And
bingo.
Michigan, one of the biggest fan bases in the country, and Oklahoma, a very big fan base as well. And college basketball Game Day goes to Lawrence because that's where the eyeballs are there. So that's kind of Mizzou's place in the universe right now. But the best way to change that is to win games. And so, like I said, you get off to that hot start. I mean, who knows? I have not looked at the competition at all. Like September 20th, what the games are, but if it's undefeated South Carolina and undefeated Missouri, maybe.
I think it's a pretty weak slate. I think I've looked at it. It's a pretty weak slate.
Okay.
So possible.
Even like I'd say Alabama gets it back together and it's undefeated Missouri against one loss Alabama and October 11th, maybe. I don't know. Dare to dream, that again, keep winning and eventually they'll have to show up.
People just got to show out for SEC Nation. SEC Nation's coming. Just show out, show game day what they missed. All you can really do.
That's what you got to do. All right, Pat, we appreciate your time talking some Mizzou and Kansas here, the Border War II. Phenomenal rivalry. So glad that it's back. So you got your 40-yard dash up there on SI. What else you got going on for us over there at SI?
Oh, way too much. Got 40-yard dash. All 4 quarters of that are up. Column from the Bill Belichick debacle. I was there for that. Column from LSU beating Clemson. We're recording another podcast. Others Receiving Votes is the name of it. That'll be tomorrow. Got video coming out later today. So a bunch of stuff. But I do have to say too, okay, out of all the stuff I've done, probably some prideful ownership in the fact that when I was the sports editor of the Man-Eater 1,000 years ago, every time we did the Eater picks for the Friday paper, we said we put Kansas in there. We picked Kansas to lose, and we hate Kansas. Yes, we do. Every single time.
I love it.
I love it.
That's great.